Aisha liked quiet places. She worked as a school librarian, so she lived in a world of soft voices and careful hands. Most days, she walked home through a small market and bought fruit for tea. Her clothes were simple and neat. She did not chase trends or new labels. She cared more about meaning than price. This week, her younger sister had a birthday coming up. Aisha wanted to give her something that would last, something small but full of heart. She saved a little every month in a plain envelope, the way her mother had taught her. When she finally counted the notes that morning, she smiled. It was enough for a modest necklace, nothing flashy, just a gentle shine that said, "I thought of you." The boutique she chose sat on a wide, clean street in the city center. Its windows were tall and bright, like a quiet museum. Inside, the glass cases looked like they were floating. Aisha had walked past many times but never gone in. She always told herself, one day. Today felt like that day. She wore a cotton dress the color of tea with milk, a light scarf, and her comfortable flats. She pressed the door handle gently and stepped into cool air that smelled faintly of flowers and new fabric. A chime rang softly. For a moment, it felt like entering a library after hours, calm and careful, a little bit special. A young clerk across the room looked up, then down again at her tablet. Another customer, dressed in bright designer clothes, received a warm greeting and a glass of sparkling water. Aisha did not mind. She was used to waiting. She moved slowly along a display where delicate necklaces rested on velvet stands. One caught her eye, a thin chain with a small stone like a drop of morning dew. It was not loud. It was not trying to impress. It was simply beautiful. She could see her sister wearing it with a white kurta on a sunny day. Aisha leaned in to read the tag, and the number on it made her breathe out with relief. It was within the budget she had prepared. "Excuse me," Aisha said softly, turning toward the clerk. "Could I see this necklace, please?" The clerk's name tag read Nina. Nina did not look up. Aisha waited, then tried again with a gentle smile. "When you have a moment." Nina lifted her eyes, looked at Aisha's dress, then passed her toward the woman in designer clothes. "1 second, she said, but her voice carried the weight of a full stop. She walked over to the other customer and began an eager conversation about limited releases and exclusive lists. Aisha stood with her hands folded in front of her. She wasn't angry. She had guided many children through the unfairness of playgrounds and group projects. Adults, she knew, sometimes forgot their lessons. Another staff member came from the back, a tall woman with a manager's air. Her name tag said Clara. She gave Aisha a quick, polite smile that did not reach her eyes. "Hello," Aisha said. "I'm looking for a gift for my sister. This necklace," she gestured at the glass. "It's lovely. May I try it?" Clara's smile sharpened into something thin. "We typically assist clients by appointment," she said. "We've had issues with browsing lately. It disrupts the experience for our regulars." Aisha blinked. "I won't take long," she replied in her calm, steady voice. "Just a quick look." Clara opened her mouth as if to explain a complicated policy, then closed it. She glanced at Aisha's plain flats and nodded to someone at the door. The security guard stepped closer, careful but firm. His tag said Omar. He had the look of someone who had seen many kinds of days. Aisha's heart dipped, not with fear but with a tired sort of sadness. She knew what was happening. She had seen it before in different shapes on buses, at counters, in waiting rooms. It was a kind of quick math people did with clothes and tone and posture. Sometimes it added up to kindness. Sometimes it did not. She took one last look at the small necklace, the clear stone shining like a raindrop, and then she turned back to Omar. His eyes were not unkind. "Ma'am," he said softly, "would you mind stepping outside? We're at capacity." Aisha glanced around the near-empty showroom. She said nothing. She walked with him toward the door. On the sidewalk, the afternoon sun warmed her face. Behind her, the door closed with a smooth hush that felt final. A couple near the window had their phones out, perhaps they were checking messages, perhaps a camera was open. Aisha could not tell. She drew a quiet breath and adjusted her scarf. "I'm sorry," Omar said, almost a whisper. He held out a thin card with the store's number and the manager's name. "Maybe call for an appointment," he added, as if trying to patch a small tear in the fabric of the moment. Aisha accepted the card. "Thank you for being gentle," she said, and meant it. The door behind them reflected the street like a mirror, hiding everyone inside. She did not walk far. There was a public bench under a tree where she sometimes sat after long days. She took the card from her bag and read Clara in clean letters. Aisha pictured her sister's face when the gift box opened. She pictured the small stone catching light at a family lunch. She told herself, "It's just a shop. It's only a shop." But the sting stayed. She had not been loud. She had not asked for anything more than a look. Still, she had been weighed and measured and moved aside like a coat on a crowded rack. For a minute, she considered going back in and asking to speak with someone else. Then she remembered the flat look, the quick nod, the easy decision made about her. The thought slid away. Her phone buzzed. A friend had sent a funny picture from the school's lost and found box, a single glittery shoe that no one would claim. Aisha smiled despite herself and typed a small joke back. She put the card in her bag and stood. On the way home, she stopped at the corner shop where the owner always greeted her by name. She bought a packet of tea leaves and a small bar of chocolate for her sister, just in case she could not find the necklace anywhere else. The shopkeeper asked about school, and she told him a story about a little boy who whispered to every book before checking it out, as if promising to return it on time. The shopkeeper laughed. The world felt normal again for a moment. Her apartment was neat and full of light. She placed the tea on the counter and rinsed 2 cups. When the water boiled, steam rose in small, friendly clouds. Aisha kept busy with simple tasks. She folded a stack of hand towels, watered the fern by the window, and set the table for dinner. She told herself that small, steady actions were a kind of prayer. When her husband, Imran, came home, he noticed the extra care in the way the spoons were lined up, the way the flowers in the jar sat just so. He kissed her head and asked about her day. Aisha smiled and said it was fine. She asked about his meetings, and he said they were long but useful. They ate in easy silence for a few minutes, the way people who trust each other can. Imran was a calm man. He had built his company with careful steps and a habit of listening more than speaking. He loved that Aisha moved through the world with quiet strength. He loved that she could see beauty in small things. Halfway through dinner, he noticed the way she lifted her cup and set it down without sipping. He noticed how her shoulders kept a little more tension than usual. He did not push. "Tea is too strong?" he asked lightly. Aisha shook her head. "It's fine," she said, and smiled again, the way a teacher smiles when a child is watching. When the plates were cleared, she washed them and he dried them, passing each plate like a slow dance they had practiced many times. Later, they sat by the window with the city lights at their feet. Imran talked about a book he had read long ago, and Aisha listened. She thought about the necklace again, about how it had looked in the glass. She felt a nudge inside her to tell him what happened, but a part of her resisted. She did not like making small hurts into big stories. She did not want to be the reason he spent his night on phone calls and emails. He had enough on his mind. So she told him about the lost and found shoe instead, and about a girl who returned a comic book a day late with a note of apology. When Imran went to his desk to check something for the morning, Aisha took the boutique card from her bag and looked at it again. She turned it over. The back was blank. She imagined calling the number and hearing the same cool voice. She imagined being told that, yes, an appointment was possible for next week, and yes, they could show her the necklace if it was still available. She tried to decide if that would make the feeling go away. She put the card in a drawer, then took it out again. She did not want to hide it, but she did not want it to shadow their evening either. She set it under a small paperweight shaped like a bird, where it looked harmless and temporary. Before bed, she made a list for the next day in her neat handwriting: return library key, call plumber for sink, pick up cake for sister, check another shop for necklace. She added a tiny sketch of a droplet next to necklace, and that made her smile. Aisha believed in trying again. She believed in going one shop further, one block more, one phone call extra. It was not stubbornness. It was faith that somewhere, someone would meet her with the same gentle care she offered to others. She switched off the lamp and lay down. The city hummed like a giant, distant kettle. Imran reached for her hand in the dark, and she squeezed it. The day had not been perfect, but it was over, and tomorrow would be new. In the quiet just before sleep, a small thought knocked again: tell him. Tell him about the boutique, the glass cases, the cool voice, the gentle guard. She could almost hear how he would respond slowly, kindly, with that steady attention that made people feel seen. But she let the thought pass. Perhaps it would sound silly in the morning. Perhaps it was nothing at all. She told herself this like a story, and at last her breath slowed and evened out. The paper bird on her desk held down a blank card with a single name and number: waiting. Across the city, the boutique lights dimmed, and the night staff swept the floors in smooth lines. The small necklace still rested in its place, catching a thin line of street light through the blind. It did not know its part in a larger story. It did not know that dignity, like a precious stone, shows its shine only when handled with care. Aisha slept with the calm of someone who has done her best to stay gentle in a rough moment. Morning, she believed, would bring its own answers, even if they arrived quietly, like the soft chime of a door when you step into a new place and are welcomed as you are. The next morning began like many others in their home: soft light through the curtains, the kettle humming, the small sounds of two people who knew each other's rhythms well. Aisha set the cups on the tray and tried to keep her mind on the day's list. Return the library key. Call the plumber. Pick up the cake for her sister. She added one more task in the margin: check another shop for a necklace. She told herself it was a fresh start, a new chance. Still, as she stirred sugar into the tea, her hand paused for a heartbeat. Imran noticed that pause. He always noticed small things. He took his cup and sat across from her at the table that looked toward the window. The city was already awake, cars moving like slow silver fish on the road below. Did you sleep? He asked, gentle, as if testing the surface of a quiet pond. Aisha nodded. Enough, she said. He did not press. They spoke about the day at the school, about a visiting author who would read to the younger classes, about a broken tap near the staff room that everyone kept forgetting to report. The usual talk built a bridge across the unspoken thing. But then Aisha's eyes slipped toward the drawer where the boutique card rested under the little paper bird, and the bridge trembled. She took a breath and told the story. She told it the way librarians tell stories to children: clearly, simply, without extra decoration. The glass cases. The small necklace like a drop of morning. The smile that did not reach the eyes. Omar's careful voice. The door closing behind her like a soft line. Imran did not interrupt. He did not make noises of shock or anger. He listened the way a good reader listens to a quiet book. When she finished, he set his cup down and asked a few careful questions: time, names, how many other customers, what exactly was said. Aisha answered each one. She felt the heat rise in her face, not from shame but from the sudden relief of finally putting the weight down between them. He reached across the table and touched her hand. Thank you, he said. You handled it with grace. She gave a small, crooked smile. I'm not sure it felt graceful, she replied. It felt like standing in a hallway that leads nowhere. He nodded. Then we'll build a better hallway, he said, and that made her laugh in spite of herself. He did not rush out the door to make calls. He finished his tea, helped her pack a small snack for mid-morning, and walked with her to the elevator. In the lobby he asked, "Do you still want that necklace for your sister?" Aisha looked at him. "I wanted the feeling of it," she said. "The simple kindness of choosing something thoughtful." He nodded again, as if filing that sentence away. "We'll keep the kindness," he said. "We'll make sure the rest matches it." She squeezed his hand and left for school with a lighter step than she had expected. On the way to his office, Imran sent a short message to his assistant, Samir, "Quietly check if any clips are online of boutique name yesterday afternoon. Time window, 3:05 p.m. Also pull public reviews for the past 6 months service notes only." Samir replied with a thumbs up and a promise to have something soon. In the car, Imran watched the morning pass through the windows, street vendors setting out fruit, a child in a bright backpack waving at a bus, a flower seller lifting a bucket of marigolds. He thought about Aisha's steady voice when she said it felt like standing in a hallway that leads nowhere. He did not want noise. He wanted a door where there had been none. At school, Aisha set out chairs for the reading circle and arranged picture books in a gentle arc. Children trickled in with excited steps. She loved the way a story could settle a room, and she leaned into that gift. When a little boy asked if he could sit closer because he could not hear well at the back, she smiled and made space. When a girl worried she had returned a book late, Aisha said, "You brought it back with care. That is what matters." For a while, the memory of the boutique faded, replaced by the soft rustle of pages and the chorus of small voices repeating a favorite line from the story. But during a quiet moment at her desk, her phone buzzed with a message from Imran, "Thank you for telling me. I'm handling this calmly. No public drama. Just making things right." She felt her shoulders drop a fraction. By mid-morning, Samir walked into Imran's office with a folder and an expression that said the news was mixed. "There is a short clip online," he said, keeping his voice low. "It shows a woman being escorted out. Not clear, but comments are picking up. A few people mention appointments and dress codes. Nothing huge yet." Imran nodded. "We won't feed it," he said. "We'll fix the route." He paged through the printouts of reviews. More than once, customers had used gentle words to describe something that sounded like a pattern: "I felt invisible, I waited a long time while others were helped, beautiful store, not sure it's for people like me." One line stood out: "Kind guard, cool staff." Imran tapped it. "Omar," he said, remembering the name Aisha had spoken. He made a note: "Recognize kindness." "Next steps?" Samir asked. Imran's answer was ready because he had thought this way for years: verify the experience, correct the behavior, support the people who want to do it right. 3 mystery shoppers, he said. 1 older tourist, 1 student, 1 service worker on a break. Simple clothes. No appointment. Ask to see a mid-range item. Track response time, tone, eye contact, and whether they are offered help." Samir nodded and started texting. Within minutes, he had a retired teacher from his mother's walking group, a design student he mentored, and the maintenance supervisor from their building lined up for the afternoon. Before lunch, Imran called the property owner, Mr. Qureshi, a practical man who cared about steady tenants and a building that felt good to be in. Imran did not lay blame. He described the facts and the reviews. He spoke about the building's reputation and the simple truth that people remember how they are treated at the door. Mr. Qureshi listened and said, "We want good shops here, not just expensive ones." He agreed to join a meeting the next day with the boutique's regional director, Miss Patel, who had a clear, thoughtful mind and a strong belief in the brand's public promise. Imran also set a call with a training firm he had used before, people who taught welcome, not scripts. As the sun moved across the library windows, Aisha helped two girls choose a book for their friend who was home with a cold. She kept her focus on the small, good tasks that made days strong. Still, she felt a quiet current under the surface. She trusted Imran's calm. She trusted the way he refused to make a spectacle of pain. During her lunch break, she walked to a nearby bakery to order her sister's cake and picked a design with tiny leaves around the edge. The clerk there spoke to her with simple warmth, offered to write a kind message on the top, and wrapped an extra biscuit for her to take back. "For your tea," the clerk said. Aisha smiled and thought, here is what a door feels like when it opens. The mystery shoppers visited the boutique in the early afternoon. The retired teacher wore a floral blouse and comfortable sandals. She asked to see a classic scarf. She waited 10 minutes while two newer arrivals were approached with bright smiles and drinks. When she did receive attention, the tone was polite but thin, as if spoken through glass. The design student, carrying a sketchbook, asked to try on a simple bracelet. She was told to look at the lower display and steered away from the main cases. The maintenance supervisor, who had clean hands but wore his building badge, asked about a gift for his wife. He received a short wave toward a shelf near the exit. Each wrote their notes within minutes of leaving, and Samir forwarded them to Imran. The pattern was no longer a question. It was a line drawn in clear ink. Imran sat with that line for a few minutes without moving. Then he called Miss Patel's office. He did not ask for the store manager first, he believed in addressing patterns with people who could move systems. Miss Patel answered on the second ring. He explained the situation and offered to bring the notes to a private meeting at the store the next day. There was no thunder in his voice, only the steady tone of someone who expects better because better is possible. Miss Patel agreed at once and asked to see the CCTV footage to understand exactly what had happened. Imran requested that the team prepare it and that Omar, the guard, be available for a brief conversation. He handled things with care, he said. I want that to be seen. When Aisha returned home in the late afternoon, she found a small bouquet on the table with a handwritten note from Imran, for the teacher who handles every page with respect. She smiled and placed the flowers in the jar where the morning's stems had stood. As they cooked together, she asked, "Is it okay if I know what you're doing, or would you rather I stay out of it?" He dried his hands and told her plainly. He described the review patterns, the mystery visits, the plan for a quiet, firm meeting with Miss Patel and Mr. Qureshi, the request to view the store's own footage. He spoke about training, not punishment, growth, not headlines. I don't want shadows over people's work, he said. I want more light in the room. Aisha listened with a mixture of relief and worry. I don't want anyone to lose their job because of me, she said. I don't want to be the reason someone can't pay rent. Imran shook his head. You won't be, he said. If people choose to change, we'll make space for that. If they do not, leadership will decide. But the goal is not fear. It is fairness. She nodded. The word fairness had the clean ring of a spoon tapping a glass. It sounded like the library at closing time, when every book was back in its place because people had chosen to return them. After dinner, they walked a little in the cool air on the balcony. The city lights rose like quiet stars. Aisha told him about the visiting author and the girl who had written a thank you note shaped like a tiny book. Imran told her about Mr. Qureshi's straightforward nature and Miss Patel's willingness to engage. Will you go to the store? She asked. Yes, he said. But without noise. He hesitated. Would you like to come? Aisha thought about the glass cases and the cool voices. She thought about Omar's careful apology. I will come, she said at last, surprising herself. But I want to stand the way I stood before. In the same simple dress. I want to see if the room is different. Imran smiled at that. It will be, he said. He outlined the plan: arrive in the afternoon, ask the team to serve a new walk-in fairly, watch gently, and then speak to the room with respect. He would propose a 24-hour closure for full hospitality training, a 90-day period of weekly mystery visits, and a monthly community hour for teachers, nurses, and service workers. He would recommend recognition for Omar. He would offer a mentorship track for junior staff who wanted to grow. He would ask the manager to step into leadership training or into a new role, depending on her choice. No speeches, he added. Just a clear promise: everyone who walks in is a guest. That night, Aisha placed the boutique card back under the small paper bird. It did not look like a reminder of hurt anymore, it looked like a placeholder for hope. She ironed her simple dress and hung it on the wardrobe door, the way one hangs a thought one is ready to keep. Imran printed the notes and placed them in a folder with the calm order of a librarian who respects records. He also wrote a short message to Miss Patel confirming the time and the plan to review the video. He ended with a sentence that sounded like him: the brand's beauty must begin with welcome. When the lamp was off and the city hummed again like a faraway song, Aisha felt the hallway inside her shift. It no longer led nowhere. It led to a door she would walk through tomorrow, not to prove anything, but to witness a better way. She did not know exactly what would happen. She did not need to. She trusted their shared habit of choosing the steady path. In his mind, Imran rehearsed the one question he would ask the staff when the time was right: if this was your mother or your sister, would this feel right? It was not a trick. It was a mirror. Morning would come, as it always did. There would be tea and a list and a city waking up. There would be a store with tall glass windows, a team standing on a floor that had seen many days, and a small necklace waiting under a soft light. There would be the sound of a door chime and the shape of two people stepping inside with calm faces and open hands. And there would be the chance, always the chance, to choose respect, which is the finest thing any room can hold. The afternoon sun made the tall windows of the boutique shine like calm water. Aisha stood across the street for a moment, breathing in slow and steady. She wore the same simple dress as before, the one the manager had looked at with cool eyes. It was not a protest. It was a choice to stand in the same place and see if the room had changed. She smoothed her scarf, touched the small paper bird charm on her bag, and crossed when the light turned green. The city's noise faded as she pushed the glass door. The soft chime sounded again, the same note as yesterday, like a bell before a story begins. Inside, the air smelled of flowers and clean fabric. The displays were perfect, each piece sitting on velvet like a small star. Aisha walked to the same case where the necklace rested under a kind beam of light. The stone was still like a drop of morning. For a second, it felt as if time had paused. She could almost see her sister's smile through the glass. She looked up. Nina, the young clerk, was at the far counter, arranging a row of bags. She glanced up, noticed Aisha, and then looked down again. Not rude, not welcoming, just a quiet, unsure pause. Clara, the manager, came from the back. Her steps were quick, and her mouth held the same polite shape as before. "Good afternoon," she said, voice smooth. "Do you have an appointment?" Aisha kept her own voice calm. "No. I'd like to see this necklace again, please. It's for my sister." Clara's eyes flicked to the dress, the scarf, the simple flats. A brief hesitation, like a blink you might miss if you were not paying attention. "We are quite busy," she said. "But let me see what we can do." Aisha nodded and folded her hands, feeling the same quiet patience that had held her yesterday. She was not here to push. She was here to witness. The door chimed again. A man in a plain t-shirt and jeans stepped in, holding a folded newspaper and looking around with the open curiosity of a person who had not been in a place like this before. He did not rush, he stood near the scarves, reading the little tags as if they were museum labels. Nina moved first, not toward him but toward a woman who had entered behind him wearing heels that clicked like small bells. The new woman received a bright greeting and a glass of sparkling water. The man in the t-shirt continued to look at the scarves alone, his hands careful as if touching something that did not belong to him. Aisha watched without moving. She did not know the man, but she knew the feeling of being in a room that speaks to you in a quiet voice that says, "Maybe you should leave." She felt a soft ache in her chest. Yesterday's hallway seemed to stretch again, but this time she held a map. She turned toward the door as it chimed a third time. Imran entered, calm as a steady tide, followed by a woman with sharp, kind eyes and a notebook in her hand, Miss Patel, the regional director. Behind them was Mr. Qureshi, the building's owner, whose simple suit and sensible shoes said he liked things to work and last. They did not arrive with cameras or anger. They arrived with attention. Clara straightened, smoothing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Good afternoon," she said, suddenly brighter. "Welcome." Imran nodded to her, to Nina, to the room. He did not make a speech. He looked at Aisha first. It was a small look, but it filled the space between them with trust. Then he turned to Miss Patel. "Would you mind if we watch how guests are welcomed for a few minutes?" Miss Patel's smile was warm but firm. "Of course," she said. "We're here to learn." The man in the t-shirt set down the scarf he had been studying and approached Nina. "Excuse me," he said, voice careful, "I'm looking for a gift for my wife. Something simple. Not too expensive." Nina glanced at his shoes, then at the woman in heels, then at the door. "We have some items near the front," she said, gesturing toward a small display by the exit. "Maybe look there first." The man nodded, a little smaller now, and walked toward the exit display where a few items sat as if they were waiting to go home. Imran's face did not change. Miss Patel wrote something in her notebook. Mr. Qureshi looked at the floor, then at the staff, his eyes kind and steady. Aisha turned back to the necklace. She raised her hand slightly. "May I see this?" she asked Clara again, as if repeating a simple line in a play. Clara spoke to a junior clerk, who went to find a key. It took a few minutes. In that time, a retired teacher in a floral blouse walked in and stood quietly near the bracelets, and a young student with a sketchbook traced patterns in the air with her eyes. The junior clerk returned and opened the case with careful hands. Aisha held the necklace like a breath made solid. It was light and clear and honest. All the while, the store buzzed gently, like a hive where not all bees had learned the same dance. Imran waited. When the room felt settled, he walked to Clara with Miss Patel and Mr. Qureshi. "Would it be possible to review yesterday's CCTV footage for the hours of 3 to 5, he asked. "We'd also like to see some from this afternoon." Clara's face tightened, then relaxed. She was a professional, she knew the cameras watched more than theft. "Yes," she said. "We can view it in the back office." Imran nodded. He turned to Aisha. "Would you like to come?" She hesitated, then nodded. She held the necklace a little closer and gave it back to the junior clerk with a grateful look. "I'll see it again," she said softly, more to herself than to anyone else. The back office was neat and cool. A monitor sat on the desk, the screen divided into clear squares of time. A staff member pulled up the recordings. The images moved without sound, but they spoke loudly. There was Aisha yesterday, stepping in with her quiet grace, moving toward the necklace as if drawn by a string of light. There was Nina, looking up and down, the slight angle of the mouth that said everything and nothing. There was Clara's small, professional smile that did not include warmth. There was Omar, gentle hands and careful steps, leading a polite woman toward a door that closed as if it were part of a ritual. The room held a silence that was not empty. It was full of seeing. Aisha kept her eyes on the screen. She did not want to look at faces. She wanted to look at facts. She watched herself walk to the bench outside and sit for a moment under the tree. She watched herself press the card into her bag. She felt the old ache, but she stood very straight, like a page that will not bend. Miss Patel took a slow breath. "Thank you," she said to the staff member who ran the footage. "Now, please play the clips from this afternoon." On the screen, the retired teacher waited near the bracelets while two newer arrivals were helped. The student was steered away from a main display. The man in the t-shirt was guided toward the exit shelf. The patterns did not need a narrator. Miss Patel turned to Clara. "What do you see?" she asked. It was not cruel. It was clear. Clara's eyes were glossy in a way that had nothing to do with tears, more like a window that does not want to fog. "I see poor judgment," she said. "I see habits that should not be habits." Her voice almost broke on the last word. She looked at Aisha. "I am sorry," she said, the words small and simple. "I am very sorry." Aisha gave a small nod. She did not want to hold anyone underwater. She wanted the room to breathe. Imran spoke then, not to accuse but to place the truth on the table like a document that must be read. "My name is Imran," he said, as if it were a new introduction even to those who knew his name. "I help lead an investment firm that holds the mortgage on this building and provides lending to the group that runs this franchise region. I share this so you understand the tools we can use to make things better, not to threaten anyone." He paused and looked around the small office, at each person in turn. "We are not here to make a scene. We are here to build a standard." Mr. Qureshi cleared his throat gently. "We like steady tenants," he said, his voice like a well-kept path. "We like the building to be a place where people feel welcome. That is good for business and good for the street." Miss Patel closed her notebook with a soft snap, as if to mark a chapter end. "The brand promises beauty with welcome," she said. "If the welcome is not real, the beauty becomes a costume. We cannot allow that." Omar stood just inside the door, unsure if he should be there, hands folded. Imran noticed him and nodded. "You handled a hard moment with care," he said. "Thank you." Omar looked surprised, then relieved, then quiet. He nodded once, a small bow of respect, and stepped back as if not to take up space. Aisha felt something ease inside her. It meant a great deal to see kindness seen. They returned to the showroom. The light had shifted, laying long stripes across the floor. Customers moved softly among the displays, unaware that the room had taken a deep breath. Imran asked the team to gather near the central counter. He did not stand on a platform. He stood at the same level as everyone else. Miss Patel stood beside him, and Mr. Qureshi stood with the practical look of someone ready to do the work after the talking ends. "We watched the footage," Imran said. His voice carried, but it did not strain. "We saw patterns. Patterns can be changed. We are not here to measure anyone's worth. We are here to set a standard we all can be proud of." He looked at Nina and then at the junior clerk with the key, and then at Clara. "I will ask a simple question. If the person who walked in yesterday was your mother, your sister, your neighbor, would this have felt right?" No one answered out loud. The question filled the room like light. A customer adjusted a scarf and smiled at her reflection, unaware of the quiet shift. The man in the t-shirt had left earlier with empty hands. Aisha hoped he would come back one day to a different room. She stood near the necklace case again, not touching the glass this time, letting the stone hold its light for a few more minutes. In her mind, she saw her sister at the family lunch, a soft laugh, a small sparkle at her neck. She felt no winning and no losing, just the clean relief of truth being spoken without sharp edges. Clara stepped forward, her posture straight but softer. "We need help," she said. Saying that sentence cost something and gave something at the same time. "I need help." She looked at Miss Patel. "I want to learn to lead this team with better eyes." Miss Patel nodded, and something like respect passed between them. It looked like a thread that would hold if handled well. Nina's face changed, too. It was as if a mask had slipped, and under it was a young person who wanted to be good at a job that can make people feel seen. Imran did not outline the full plan yet. He would do that with Miss Patel after the team heard it firsthand, clearly and kindly. But he gave them a glimpse, like a door opened just enough to let in fresh air. "We will close for a day to reset," he said. "We will bring in teachers of welcome. We will check ourselves for 90 days, every week. We will open early once a month for the people who keep this city running: teachers, nurses, drivers, guards. We will recognize kindness where we find it." He looked at Omar again, and the guard looked down, shy and proud at once. Aisha felt the shape of the day turn. It turned like a page that had been waiting for the hand that would not tear it. She knew that training would not rewrite a heart in one day. But she also knew that habits can learn new steps, and rooms can remember what they are for. She stood very still, grateful for the quiet way Imran moved through a hard space, grateful for Miss Patel's firm kindness, grateful for Mr. Qureshi's steady sense of place. She was even grateful for Clara's words, "We need help." Honest words are a form of welcome too. Before they left the office area, Imran asked to see one more small piece of footage, the moment Omar gave Aisha the card outside. The camera caught it, the guard's careful hand, Aisha's quiet thanks. It was nothing and it was everything. It showed that even when a room fails, a person inside it can still choose gentleness. "We will build on this," Imran said softly, more to himself than to anyone else. As the meeting paused and the team returned to their posts for the last hour of the day, the necklace's stone flashed again under the light, like a tiny signal. Aisha did not buy it yet. She wanted to wait until the room itself felt ready to hand it to her with open hands. She stepped toward the door, and the chime sang its small note. On the sidewalk, the city carried on, vendors calling, children laughing, a bus sighing at a stop. Imran joined her, and they walked side by side without hurry. The turning had begun. The next part would show what people choose to do after the truth is seen. The store was quiet the next morning, but not because no one cared. The front door held a neat sign in clear letters, "Closed today for team training. See you tomorrow with a better welcome." People paused to read it. Some took photos. A few guessed there had been an argument and expected a storm. But inside, there was no storm. There were chairs in a circle, notebooks on a table, and a tray of teacups that Omar had set out with careful hands. The lights were softer than usual. The team sat down one by one, not quite sure where to look. Clara stood with her shoulders straight and her palms open, as if she had decided to stop holding anything that did not help. Imran arrived on time and without fuss. Aisha came with him but chose a seat at the edge. She did not want the day to turn toward her. She wanted it to turn toward everyone. Miss Patel from the brand sat with a calm face and a pen ready. Mr. Qureshi, the building owner, nodded to the staff in a way that said, "We live in the same city, let's keep it good." Two trainers stepped forward. One was a former hotel manager with kind eyes, the other a teacher who had spent years guiding new staff in busy places where every hello mattered. They began with a simple sentence, "Welcome is not a script. It is a habit of respect." They did not lecture. They asked each person to tell a short story of a time they felt unseen and a time they felt truly welcomed. The room shifted as the stories came out. Nina spoke first, voice small but steady. "At my first job," she said, "people spoke over me when I tried to help. I hated that feeling. I am sorry I made anyone feel that here." She did not look at Aisha, but the apology reached her anyway. A junior clerk admitted she often froze when she could not guess who would buy something. "I thought I was being efficient," she said, "but I was being unfair." Clara took a long breath and said words that were hard and clean, "I saw the store through numbers, not faces. I forgot that numbers come from people." The trainers wrote a few simple rules on a board. Rule 1, greet every person within 10 seconds of entry, eye contact, a real hello. Rule 2, Offer help with a clear, equal tone, no weighing clothes, accents, or shoes. Rule 3, if busy, set a return moment. I'll be with you in 2 minutes and keep that promise. Rule 4, if you make a mistake, repair it on the spot, no excuses, just care. They called it the 10 equal to repair method. The names were easy on purpose, so a nervous mind could carry them even on a hard day. They practiced greetings, not as a game but as craft. The teacher-trainer played 3 kinds of guests: a shy aunt looking for a gift, a student with a small budget, a tourist who did not know the local words. Staff tried different ways to greet them. Some attempts were too fast, some too sweet, some just right. The room learned by listening. They watched how a face softened when someone heard the words, "You are welcome here." They watched how tension fell when a clerk said, "Take your time. I will come back in 2 minutes," and then truly came back with patience and care. Omar was quiet, but the hotel trainer asked him to speak. He did not stand. He just said, "The door is a promise. If you guard a door, you guard that promise. Some days we fail. I try to fail soft." It was a short sentence, but it gave shape to work that often went unseen. The trainers thanked him. Miss Patel wrote the line down. Later, she would ask permission to put it on a small card by the staff area so the team could remember. Near midday, Imran asked if he could say a few words. He did not mention money or power. He spoke about trust. "Rooms remember how we behave," he said. "This room will remember today. We are not trying to make you act like anyone else. We are asking you to act like your best self, every time someone walks in." He looked at Clara without blame. "That is leadership," he said. "Not perfection. Direction." Clara nodded, as if a tight knot inside her had finally found the end of its thread. Then came the part that surprised everyone, the part people would later call the shock, though it arrived like a quiet gift, not a bang. Imran announced that his firm would fund the full day of training, yes, but more than that, he would sponsor a 3-month mentorship program for the team. Each week, 2 staff members would spend half a day at a partner store known for excellent hospitality, not a luxury brand, just a beloved neighborhood shop where regulars and new faces felt equally at ease. Staff would be paid for the time. "Learning is not a penalty," he said. "It is part of the job." Eyes widened around the circle. No one had expected paid time to learn how to be kinder. He added a second surprise. In Aisha's name, he would start a small scholarship for service workers who wanted to study retail, tailoring, visual display, or customer care. The classes would happen in the building's unused loft, which Mr. Qureshi offered to renovate into a bright room with simple tables, good light, and a kettle for tea. "This store should lift more than its own sales," Imran said. "It should lift the street." Aisha felt her face warm. She had not asked for her name to be used. She did not want attention. But the idea itself felt right, like a book placed back in the correct shelf. The trainers introduced one more tool, the mirror question. Before making a choice who to greet first, who to help next, ask yourself, would this feel right if it were my mother, my sister, my neighbor? The team practiced that question until it stopped sounding like a slogan and started sounding like a quick breath a person takes before doing the right thing. Nina wrote it on the back of her hand in tiny letters. A junior clerk put a small sticky note with the words near the register. Clara placed it at the top of the daily checklist. After lunch, they ran a live drill. Volunteers from the building, an office cleaner on her break, a delivery driver between stops, a young intern were invited to enter the store while the team practiced new habits. The door opened, the chime rang, and the staff moved with intention. "Welcome," said Nina to the cleaner, meeting her eyes with ease and offering help without pushing. "Take your time," said the junior clerk to the driver, then returned in 2 minutes as promised, ready to answer questions. Clara stood back, letting her team lead, making small notes only to praise what was working. The trainers timed the greetings and watched the tone. It was not perfect. It was better. Better is how change begins. Miss Patel announced the third surprise. For the next 90 days, the store would receive weekly visits from friends of the brand, mystery shoppers from many walks of life. Their notes would not be used to punish, they would be used to coach. If the store met its welcome goals for the whole period, the team would receive a bonus and a small celebration breakfast with guests from the community, teachers, nurses, guards, and drivers. Mr. Qureshi added his own promise: on the first Saturday of every month, the building would host a community hour where the boutique and a few neighboring shops opened early for the people who keep the city running. We will have tea and easy chairs, he said. We will make the lobby a friendly room. Nina began to cry then, not from fear but from relief. She had expected a public shaming, a cut in hours, a mark she could not remove. Instead, she was being given a path. Clara put a hand on her shoulder and did not pull it away quickly. We will do the work, the manager said, and this time the word "we" sounded true. Omar poured water and handed tissues like small acts of care, which is what they were. In the late afternoon, the trainers ended the session with a quiet review. They did not call anyone out by name. They named actions: good eye contact, kept the 2-minute promise, repair done well, and thanked the team for showing up with open hands. They asked each person to write one sentence starting with "I will," and to tape it inside the staff door. The slips filled the frame like bright leaves. I will greet first and equally. I will slow down and see faces. I will repair fast when I fail. I will ask the mirror question. I will make the door a promise. Before he left, Imran gathered the group once more and did something else no one expected. He turned to Clara. You can stay in your role, he said, if you want to do this work. He looked at Miss Patel. If she chooses the leadership program and meets the milestones, she stays as manager. If not, she can move to a role that fits while someone else leads. He turned to Nina. You will have a mentor at the partner store, he said. Your bonus will be tied to your growth, not to who you serve. He turned to Omar. You will receive a raise for consistent kindness at the door. The room let out a breath. It was not leniency. It was a careful plan, with rails to guide it. Aisha watched all this with a quiet heart. She thought of her students, who improved most when someone believed they could and then showed them how. She thought of the small necklace that had started this path. She no longer felt hurt when she looked at the glass cases in her mind. She felt steady. Change was folding itself into the room like light at the end of day. Word of the closed sign drifted through the city, but Imran did not give interviews. When a reporter called, he only said, "We are learning to welcome better," and let the brand speak in its own voice. Miss Patel released a short note online: "We closed for a day to become the store we promised to be. Tomorrow, we open with a clearer standard. Style means nothing without respect." The words were simple and true. People shared them because simple and true travel fast. Evening came. The chairs were stacked. The board was wiped, leaving only a small drawing of a door and the word "promise." The staff stood together at the entrance, looking out at the quiet street. It felt like the moment before a play begins, when the curtain is still and the actors breathe in time. Clara turned the lock with a different hand than the one that had turned it before. "Tomorrow," she said, not to herself and not to the others, but to the room. On the walk home, Imran and Aisha did not talk much. They did not need to. They had done enough talking for one day. A child ran ahead of his mother on the sidewalk, waving a paper airplane that kept diving and rising. The city was the same and not the same. That is how real change looks. The street lights glow as always, but a door on that street now holds a better promise. At home, Aisha placed her simple dress over the chair and folded her scarf. She took the boutique card from under the paper bird and looked at it one last time as a symbol of yesterday. It had done its work. She slipped it into a notebook where she kept kind notes from children and small drawings she loved. Imran wrote a short email to Miss Patel, "Thank you for meeting the moment with care." He added one line for Mr. Qureshi, "The community hour will help the whole block." Before sleep, Aisha imagined walking into the store again. Not to test anyone. Just to choose a gift with a happy heart. She pictured Nina greeting a delivery driver with the same tone she used for a person in a suit. She pictured Clara coaching her team with a steady voice. She pictured Omar at the door, holding the handle as if it were not metal but a promise someone might be nervous to touch. She pictured the small necklace in its case, still and bright, waiting to become part of a family moment. Tomorrow would not be perfect. But tomorrow would be better, and better is how fairness grows. In the calm of that thought, the city's sounds faded. Aisha slept, not with the heavy sleep of escape, but with the light sleep of someone ready for a new page. The day had held a quiet shock that traveled farther than anger ever could. A powerful man used his power to teach, to protect dignity, and to open a door that would stay open long after cameras lost interest. That was the real headline, even if no one wrote it down. And in the morning, the sign on the door would change from closed to welcome, which is the finest word any room can offer. The next morning the lock turned with a soft click, and the sign on the door changed from closed for training to a simple word, welcome. Another card hung beside it in clean letters, "Style means nothing without respect." Inside, the team stood in a small circle the way they had practiced. They reviewed the rules out loud like warm-up lines before a play. Greet within 10 seconds. Offer help with the same tone for every person. If busy, give a return time and keep it. If you make a mistake, repair it right away. Omar, by the door, rested his hand on the handle as if it were a promise he could feel. Nina looked different, not in clothes, but in the way she held herself. She was not performing, she was present. Clara carried a small notebook, not to mark faults, but to notice good work. The junior clerks took slow breaths and shared short smiles that said, "We are ready." Miss Patel stood quietly at the back for the first hour, not as a judge, but as a steady witness. Mr. Qureshi leaned at the lobby desk, talking softly with the building porter about the new community hour. The room itself seemed to wait, like a stage right before the curtain rises. The door chimed. A delivery driver stepped in, still in his work shirt, badge clipped near his pocket. He looked around the way someone looks when a place has not always welcomed him. Nina met his eyes and smiled. "Good morning. I'm glad you're here," she said. "What can I help you find?" He said he was looking for a gift for his wife's birthday, something simple, something she can wear often. Nina offered 2 ideas, both in his price range, and added, "If you want to look around first, I'll be back with you in 2 minutes. 2 minutes later, she was right there again, ready to answer questions. He chose a slim bracelet with a soft clasp. When he left, he carried a small bag and a receipt with a handwritten note, "Happy birthday to your wife. Thank you for letting us help." His face had changed. He stood taller, as if a quiet weight had slipped from his shoulders. Soon after, the retired teacher in the floral blouse entered, the one who had waited alone near the bracelets days earlier. A junior clerk greeted her quickly, "Welcome in," with a tone that made the words warm. "We have new scarves today," she added. The teacher smiled and followed. When she mentioned she had visited before and felt unsure where to stand, the clerk did not explain it away. "I am sorry," she said. "Thank you for giving us another chance." The teacher chose a scarf with soft leaves, and as she paid, she said she would wear it to read to her grandchild. The clerk beamed as if she had been told a secret and promised to learn a poem by heart before the next visit. A young student arrived with a sketchbook tucked under her arm. She asked if she could look at patterns up close for a class project. Clara surprised herself by saying, "Yes, of course. You're welcome to sketch near the display, I'll bring you water." It was a simple act, but it felt like a hinge turning. The student traced the curve of a clasp and the slope of a pendant with quick lines. She bought a thin ring from the modest case and left a note for the scholarship sign-up sheet by the register. I want to learn display design. I can help with the community hour signs. The man in the plain t-shirt came back too, the one who had been guided to the exit shelf. He walked in as if testing the floor, waiting to see if it would hold. A clerk met him at the scarves. Good to see you, he said, as if greeting a neighbor. Are you looking for something special? The man laughed softly and said, for my wife. She likes blue. Together they found a deep blue scarf with a fine edge. The clerk wrapped it in paper the way the trainer had taught, folding the corners with care so the package looked like a small gift even before it was opened. The man left with real thanks and a promise to return for an anniversary. By late morning, the room had a new rhythm. People entered, and eyes met them. Words matched those eyes. Help landed where it was needed. Clara stood near the center, not to control, but to support. When a rush began, she moved guests to comfortable waiting spots and said, "We'll be with you in 2 minutes," and she kept that promise. She also stepped in to repair a small slip when a clerk almost skipped a guest in simple clothes. "I'm sorry," Clara said to the guest, open and direct. "You were next. Thank you for your patience." The repair took 10 seconds, and the moment moved on, light again. A little before noon, the door chimed and Aisha stepped inside wearing the same simple dress. The sunlight found her scarf and painted a thin line across it. The quiet inside her felt different now. She was not bracing. She was simply there. Nina saw her and walked over with a greeting that was free of fear. "Welcome back," she said. "I'm glad to see you." It was not a script, it was true. Clara joined them and spoke with care. "I owe you an apology," she said, not in a low whisper that hid the words, but in a clear voice that respected them. "We did not greet you properly last time." "I am sorry." Aisha nodded. She was not there to collect anything, she was there to choose a gift. They opened the case, and the small necklace glowed under the light as if it had been practicing for this moment. Aisha asked to try it, not for herself, but to see how it would sit on her sister's neck. The junior clerk held a mirror. It lay perfectly, like a drop of morning at rest. "It's right," Aisha said with a soft smile. She asked for a simple box and wrote a short card, "For your bright days and your quiet days." At the counter, she saw a tray of small items for the new scholarship kits: tape measures, thread packs, neat pencils. She added 5 of each to her purchase and asked that they be sent upstairs when the loft opened. "For the first class," she said. Clara's eyes warmed. "They will be used well." Omar received a quiet moment too. Miss Patel called him to the front and thanked him for the way he had guarded the promise of the door. She handed him a letter of recognition and told him about the raise. He looked down, then up, and his smile was the kind that moves slowly because it does not know if it is allowed to take up space. The team clapped, not loud, but long. Later, Omar put the letter in a clean sleeve and slid it into his bag as if it were something fragile. The porter in the lobby shook his hand with pride, the way a friend does when a good thing happens to someone who deserves it. On Saturday, the first community hour opened with soft music and the smell of fresh tea. The lobby had easy chairs as promised. A sign designed by the student read, "Neighbors Hour, teachers, nurses, guards, drivers please come in." The letters were strong and friendly. Mr. Qureshi poured cups and said hello by name to people he had seen for years but rarely had time to greet. The store staff moved with calm energy. A nurse found a small brooch she could wear on her coat, a bus driver chose a scarf for his mother, a school cleaner tried on a bracelet and laughed shyly when it fit just right. Prices were adjusted for the hour, and no one felt watched. Aisha stopped by with a basket of homemade biscuits, placed them near the tea, and slipped away so the room would belong to the people who kept the city moving. Upstairs, sunlight filled the loft. The tables were simple, the floor clean, the windows clear. A banner made by the students said, "Welcome to the workshop." The first scholarship class met the next week. There were 8 students, a tailor's apprentice, a cashier who loved composition, a driver who wanted to learn display, 2 school leavers who drew patterns in their notebooks, and 3 store associates from the boutique team who wanted deeper skills. Aisha visited to say a few words about care, how a library teaches you to return what you use, and how a store can do the same with trust. She did not speak long. She placed a small paper bird on the teacher's desk and wrote under it, "Let every hand feel at home here." The weeks that followed told their own quiet story. Mystery shoppers came and went, and their notes showed a steady climb. Greeted in 5 seconds. Offered help in time. Repair done in the moment. Miss Patel shared the results with the team every Friday, not as a scoreboard but as a mirror. When they reached the 90-day mark with strong marks in a row, she brought breakfast and a simple certificate framed near the staff door. Clara completed her leadership modules and chose to stay in her role. She kept a small card by the register with Omar's sentence on it, "The door is a promise." Nina became a mentor for new hires and found that she liked teaching because it made her kinder to the person she used to be. The city talked in the way cities do, not through grand speeches, but through many small voices. A teacher told another teacher, "Go there, they treat you well." A driver told his cousin, "They helped me like I was meant to be there." A parent from Aisha's school stopped her at the gate and said, "That boutique something changed." A short article appeared in a local paper about the community hour and the scholarship class, but the story traveled best by face-to-face lines, the way trust likes to move. At home, life kept its shape. Aisha planned her sister's birthday lunch with her usual quiet joy. The family gathered around a table with bright plates and a cake edged with tiny leaves. When the moment came, Aisha handed over the small box. Her sister lifted the lid, and everyone fell quiet for a second, the way families do when a gift hits the heart. The necklace caught a gentle light and rested against her skin like it had been waiting for that exact place. "It's beautiful," her sister whispered, eyes shining. "It looks like morning." Aisha laughed. "That is what I thought too." She did not tell the long version of how it came to be. She told the short version, the one that kept only the lesson. "Some days are hard," she said. "But people can choose better. And when they do, the room changes." After lunch, Aisha and Imran walked outside for air. They passed the street where the boutique stood. The windows were still tall. The glass still shone. But now, when the door opened, the greeting reached the sidewalk. Imran looked at the sign again and smiled. "We built a better hallway," he said. Aisha nodded. "And a door that keeps its promise." They did not speak about power or plans. They spoke about tea for the workshop and whether the student might like a set of good pencils. Big things settle in small choices, they both believed that. Months later, the first scholarship group set up a small display in the boutique corridor. It was not grand. It was honest work, well-cut fabric, careful seams, a display shelf arranged so every item had room to breathe. People stopped to look, then stepped into the store where greetings felt like blessings instead of tests. Clara stood with the team and introduced the students with pride. Omar held the door for an elderly couple and said, "Take your time," as if he had all the time in the world to lend. Nina guided a nervous guest with the same tone she used for anyone in a suit. The mirror question hung in the air like a light you do not have to think about switching on anymore, it just turns on when you enter. Aisha kept the little paper bird on her desk at the library. Children asked about it, and she told them it was a marker for a story about a door that learned to welcome. When a child returned a book late with a worried face, she said, "You brought it back with care. That is what matters." She found that the work she did each day felt linked to the work done on that street. Both were about return, about keeping promises to each other in small, steady ways. If you stood on the sidewalk at closing one evening, you would see the team gather for a short end-of-day check. They would share one thank you for a teammate and one repair they made proudly. The lights would dim. The lock would turn. And the sign would remain in the window for anyone passing by to read under the street lamp, "Style means nothing without respect." It sounded like the end of a chapter and the start of a habit. This was the quiet truth that surprised everyone and then stopped being a surprise. The most powerful response was not to buy the store or ban the staff or make noise. It was to set a standard and stand by it until the room learned a new way to breathe. Aisha had wanted only a small necklace for someone she loved. She received that and something else too. She saw a door keep its promise. She saw a team choose better every day. And she carried that lesson like a steady light. True luxury is not a price or a label, it is the way we make people feel when they step into our care.